everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of the Genre Equality Podcast on the Genre Equality channel. I'm
I'm
Hidzir.
Hardy.
Am I, sir?
We have a big episode for you this month. I know genre has been a bit light on big titles over the past few months, but big superhero blockbusters are back, including big animation from Pixar. So, at the very least, we got a lot to talk about, particularly with the title that everyone is so hyped to see, one of the big new superhero blockbusters from DC that broke box office records and basically saved cinema in the United States for the month of March. We'll be talking about Matt Reeves' new version of the Batman alongside the second season of one of our pandemic favorites, Upload, is back. We'll talk about The Boys' animated spin-off called Diabolical, which is a very Star Wars Visions-esque take on the world of The Boys, including other stuff such as Turning Red, Everything Everywhere All at Once, After Yang, DMZ, the new Big Mouth spin-off. Isa is back with Jujutsu Kaisen Zero the movie
Yeah.
alongside other TV shows in his anime corner. But let's begin with the biggest title of them all, man. The Batman. This is the latest iteration of the Cape Crusader by Matt Reeves, and it stars Robert Pattinson as Year 2 Batman. This particular movie is obviously more David Fincher inspired, finally getting the big screen Batman to return to his detective roots from the comics. This was a bit of a blatant Zodiac or Seven type neo noir story with Paul Dano's The Riddler as the sadistic serial killer who leaves behind a trail of cryptic clues. Alongside him, we have a solid rogues gallery in supporting roles such as Zoe Kravitz's show-stealing Catwoman, Colin Farrell's unrecognizable The Penguin, John Turturro, an inspired casting choice for Carmine Falcone. The Batman slowly works to uncover the long Halloween / Hush type plot, and he unshockingly finds corruption in Gotham City's institutions, but also shockingly finds corruption possibly within his own family. This is the most grounded, frequently brutal, nearly 3-hour film noir that is unlike any other Batman film we've ever had before. Let's begin with you, Isa. What did you think of the Batman?
Oh man, I went in with great expectations for this, and I think it surpassed my expectations in terms of it wasn't what I was expecting. I think, and what we got instead of what I expected from a Batman movie following along the heels of the Nolan verse, right, was an even grittier and even darker noir mystery story spanning 3 hours. Portions of it I really, really did enjoy. I think they did nail a lot of the aesthetic. I think they did nail a lot of the music, despite it being a bit repetitive at near the end. But yeah, it is what it is. Unfortunately, we didn't really get much of character development, I think, for any of the characters. But I thought the actors did a good job all around, and I thought the story unfolded in the way that the genre requires it to. So I did have a good time.
What about you, Hadi?
Honestly, hands down, Robert Pattinson is my favorite Batman right now.
Oh, nice.
Agree. I think he's the top actor who has ever played Batman.
Yeah, but Batman, not Bruce Wayne, Batman.
Yeah.
Batman. Yeah.
Well, so what do you think about emo Bruce Wayne, though?
I just feel that there was not enough Bruce Wayne moments to really give him
like or dislike it.
Yeah, to like or
there's
dislike
no.
No, that's fair.
Yeah, there's just a few minutes of Bruce Wayne, and it wasn't enough for me to decide whether he was a good Bruce Wayne or not. I think the best Bruce Wayne is probably Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton, yeah, he had the suave to dance with the woman in the ball and all that,
Yeah.
The suave. Okay.
Purposely, Mr. Suave, the song last time.
What do you think about this Batman though? I mean, the movie, not the.
So anyway, the story was all right. It wasn't. It was very expected detective noir, which I like. Very grounded in reality, mostly. With and I liked how bleak. I think this is the bleakest since the Joker, where Gotham City has been.
There wasn't a single joke in the film, I think.
Yeah,
and it was just that idea of corruption, just in every single part of the city, the rot everywhere was very well portrayed lah.
It's very LA noir.
Yeah.
Like every LA noir does this, and
Exactly.
the Batman should do it.
And
Yeah.
they did it so well. In that sense, I love the supporting characters like Zoe Kravitz. I think kudos, one of the best Catwoman. Like she and Michelle Pfeiffer are now fighting the top spot.
Ooh.
Yeah.
The Riddler is one of the most underrated villains, because he's usually very zany, very Jim Carrey-esque, right? As the portrayal. So this Riddler's portrayal I felt was scary.
Zodiac Killer.
Yeah, very
Zodiac
Killer, very, very scary. And I like how the pieces formed, how the Riddler and the relationship between the Riddler and Batman brilliantly formulated as the movie went on.
A lot of people like to say this movie was different because it approached Batman from a detective angle. I would say the biggest difference between this and other Batman is that this is the only film that addresses Batman's or Bruce Wayne's privilege.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah. I think that's actually to me the strongest point of the film. This is the only film that addresses that, like, oh, you're so sad, you're an orphan, darkness, no parents, as the Lego movie pointed out, right? Yeah. But you got fucking money, man. Other orphans like the Riddler did not, you know. So that's what it's kind of addressing here. I think this past decade, right, has seen a slew of Batman filmmakers capturing inspiration from iconic films.
Yeah.
They are remaking their favorite films and just inserting Batman in there. Christopher Nolan, for example, wanted to do Michael Mann's Heat with Batman, and that was The Dark Knight. Todd Phillips wanted to do Taxi Driver mixed with the King of Comedy, and that was Joker. And now Matt Reeves wanted to do Seven and Zodiac, and the Seven Zodiac neo-noir just with Batman in it. And I think in all those instances, including Nolan's review at The Dark Knight, the end result was less than its inspiration.
Oh yeah.
I think The Dark Knight is a great film. Don't get me wrong. I think it's an amazing film. It's not as good as Heat. Joker is not as good as Taxi Driver or The King of Comedy. That's easier to say. And the Batman is not as good as Seven or Zodiac.
Yeah.
Okay, I give you that.
The only instance where this has ever worked was when Lord and Miller decided to do the Lego movie, but with Batman. That was the only Batman revision that actually surpassed the original.
Yeah, but because yeah. But that's because they really kept true to the essence of Batman. See,
all is from 1966 Batman all the way to now.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think of all the examples that I mentioned, this is probably the one that falls the most short. That's not to say this was the bad movie. No. It was quite a solid crime procedural, but one that never reaches the creative or emotional heights of other Batman movies or of Seven or of Zodiac. Is it successful as David Fincher cosplay? I think yes, it is. But at the end of the day, David Fincher cosplay is not David Fincher.
Okay.
Robert Pattinson is a great Batman. Zoe Kravitz was especially good as Catwoman. I think Colin Farrell did a great job at really turning himself into the Penguin.
Yeah.
Credit to the prosthetics and makeup department there. John Turturro is an inspired choice for coming for Conan.
Because Falcon has always been this big bruiser type.
Yeah.
Which is very clever also at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, John Turturro is essentially great in everything he's ever done, from the Big Lebowski
to Transformers
to Transform anything. We'll talk about 10 out of 10 John Turturro performance next month with Severance, but this was great as well. Yeah. And again, I'm not saying this is a bad movie, but it also doesn't deliver the best version of the dark, gritty, world's greatest detective story we comic book fans have always dreamed of. Instead, it's a gritty movie about a guy dressed as a bat, solving incredibly simple riddles, misunderstanding basic Spanish.
Oh, that was the worst.
And then very, very luckily, Catwoman solves the crime for him by delivering him a suspect and a confession.
Yeah.
It's a movie also with bizarre two-third acts.
What was that?
The entire terrorist climax ending felt like a sequel to an already completed movie.
It felt like they forgot that they're like, I think we should make a superhero movie now.
Bro, everything was solved already, bro. Like, you didn't need this. But anyway, whatever. What are the strengths and weaknesses of Batman to you, Isa?
I definitely love the aesthetic, right? Of Gotham in particular. I think this is the most alive the city has felt in any iteration of Batman. And I think we get that a lot from the comic books. I mean, like, having years and years of history to kind of build up there, but every iteration of Batman has a very unique take on what Gotham City is like and how that plays a big role in his, in his kind of like caped avenging that he's doing. So that I really, really liked. I like the way that he's kind of the way that the city is populated with all these kind of like miscreants and people just trying to get by to survive. I think this is the most fleshed out it's been. So I really enjoyed that. And the whole aesthetic of that is cool. I do like this Batman suit. Hits and I had a disagreement whether or not the muscle car fit for the Batmobile.
It does. Y'all shut up.
I love the muscle car.
So I thought it was a bit strange, but it is cool. Don't get me wrong, like it is really cool. I don't know if it fit. That was my main kind of.
Have you not seen the Dark Knight? Stupid car.
Exactly. Like we have so many like strange Batmobiles, and eventually his was what was it you said? His like all of the Batmobiles were
different. I said that they've tried every type of car. They've done the sleek sports car. They've done a tank. But an all American muscle car, like a very fuel inefficient type of car that we all love. I mean, fuck the environment. Is what I wanted to see the Batman have.
Come on,
this guy, this guy is I mean, this guy is so emo and he's so like toxic masculine. Like a muscle car is what it should have.
And like the intro to the Batmobile was so fucking scary. Come on.
That is true. I mean, I'm not taking away from any of that. I just thought it was an odd choice, but I mean, it worked, lah.
It did
for sure. I think for the first time we got a Catwoman with proper motivations.
Yes.
Right? That was missing from Hathaway's version, that was missing from Pfeiffer's version, that was missing from
Halle Berry didn't even have.
Halle Berry doesn't count as Catwoman for me, so like we'll just leave her out of this. But I really, really enjoyed the moments in time where when she was not Catwoman, actually. Right? Like
Same.
I think Kravitz is a fantastic up and coming kind of actress, and with her performance for the Batman, she's someone to look out for. She's proven that she can be a sort of like enigmatic, but at the same time naive, young, beautiful, intelligent, and all of those things in one. And on top of that, she's Catwoman. I'm like, okay, cool. Now that feels like a proper representation of what Selena should be, if not, like the most accurate in her backstory and all of that.
Okay.
So those are the two things that I really liked. I like the Batman suit. I like the overall aesthetic. I did find the musical score, and it's repetitive enough to get very tired in the end, right? Like it didn't really serve to kind of like underscore the portions where there was supposed to be kind of like more dramatic tension. Usually when you have a similar refrain over the course of a movie, right, it's supposed to highlight like certain points or supposed to bring about a certain theme. It didn't feel that way. And a lot of the time I was just simply distracted by the fact that in my head it was The Empire Strikes Back, right? Just because the notes were pretty much the same.
Bomb, 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 bomb.
Yeah. So like after the first three notes, right, in my head it continues as Star Wars, but it was a bit breaking for me immersion wise whenever that sort of I fell into that. So I think like those are the general strengths for this particular movie. But for like a detective film, like just way too many coincidences, like for the world's greatest detective, you're basically handed like you mentioned, right? Catwoman does the work, she captures the suspect, she does all of the heavy lifting. A lot of the
confession is on the phone recording that she gave him.
Yeah, which is insane, right? And then like even
it's very convenient.
Even for that policeman to just happen to be there in the room at the time when he goes back and then like hands him stuff, then I'm just like, are you serious? Just because like he can guess every riddle like in a moment's notice while everybody else can't figure it out doesn't mean that he should be getting a free pass, right? So
like I can forgive the whole simple riddle thing because it's for people like me, a bit dumb, so like if too complex the riddle is also a bit hard for us to follow.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I don't mind that the riddles are a bit simplified.
Yeah.
But oh my god, some of the things like given to him is just ridiculous. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, the future Commissioner Gordon, the future world's greatest detective, do not know the difference between L and La.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
Boy, dude, I'm not saying like I'm a fluent Spanish speaker. I've like been to Barcelona a couple of times, but I mean, come on, lah, come on. Oh boy. What about you, Hadi? Like final like strengths, weaknesses before
Oh,
you give your rating here.
definitely the strengths. I agree with you.
Yep.
I love not only the suit, but how they use like the footsteps
Mm.
to call like
He
that's the signature in this movie is the footsteps of Batman.
felt scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, like chills. Apart from that, yeah, Batmobile we already talked about. I love that whole scary monster intro to the Batmobile. The sound was just scary and all that.
Mm.
Unnecessary fucking chase, but really cool, right?
It was great.
It
It was
was
a very
great.
like French Connection,
Yes.
Ford versus Ferrari in a type like you put the camera on the car so it makes
Yes.
it feel visceral and you're in
Yes.
the car. Yeah, I like that
love
style
that.
of it.
Unnecessary but awesome.
Mm.
Yep.
Just people died, for no reason in that chase, but yeah, whatever.
A bunch of random truck drivers were murdered and nobody cared.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like the whole that I can never. Anyway, then penguins are tie into the story was interesting.
Yeah.
Whatever,
Mm.
but that I like the twist that you brought back the Wayne history, the Wayne and
Mm.
Arkham history, into the whole thing, the whole like that secret journalist that was
Yeah, it was like the Hush storyline like in the comic book.
yeah, so that was brilliant, like to bring all those little elements in to say that look, your family ain't all innocent in this, like they are as culpable to the corruption
Mm.
of Gotham.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and that was something that I don't think has, because all the previous Batmans, Thomas Wayne has always been kind of like a paragon,
Yes.
Mm.
and never really explored as part of the problem as well,
Mm.
because a lot of the times we forget that capitalism is the root cause of a lot of corruption,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
rich people are not paragons. There's no such, in reality it's rare,
Yep.
so it's good that there was some sort of like blemish to this whole like Thomas Wayne being good and all that he's also still human, that
Yeah.
he's also
Mm.
culpable to making bad decisions lah,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and yeah, so tying in the whole Falcone thing was brilliant because again that's with the comics lah.
Yeah.
Where
Mhm.
Thomas Wayne and Falcone actually had an agreement lah.
Mhm.
So I like that, and overall I feel the strengths was that it highlighted things that was never highlighted before. The weaknesses I think is the same thing as you guys lah.
Mm.
That third act
Right,
really
right.
threw me off lah. The entrance with the explosions and all that. I'm like, what the fuck? Why are we watching the Avengers now? When he entered with all the explosions,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
unnecessary.
Yeah, a lot of the third act seems very reminiscent of like actually a lot of it seems like Matt Reeves wanted to expound upon what Nolan already explored, the corruption, the grittiness, the tale that what Batman inspires is just as bad as the crime that he's fighting,
Yeah.
and Gotham City being blown up, whether it's the bridges in the Dark Knight Rises,
Mhm.
and or the flooding here, it all seems very derivative
It
to
is.
me.
Yeah.
So nothing special
No.
there. I think I would overall rate this a 6 out of 10. What about you, Isa? Final thoughts and rating?
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10 as well. I think it's a good Batman movie. I don't think it's a great movie in general.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. What about you, Hadi?
I mean, after hearing all this from you guys and agreeing, my wife was like, my wife actually agrees with you all a lot on this.
Oh,
Okay.
I will say a 6.5 lah for me.
okay.
Wow. Okay. Okay. I will say, like, as a final thought, I think Michael Giacchino was very busy with Spider-Man: No Way Home.
Mhm.
And I think he sort of phoned this one in. He was just like, "Oh, why don't we play that Nirvana song 3 times?
Yeah.
Just to why not?"
Yeah, the Nirvana song was played so many times.
Absolutely, yeah. But yeah, that was our review for The Batman.
It was
and
like immigrant
boy,
song doing Thor.
Yeah. Yeah. Say-
quite a lot, lah. Like, but I mean, Nirvana has a lot of great songs.
Mhm.
This was not one of them. And Immigrant Song is way better than that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I
No
agree.
offense to Nirvana.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I saw a lot of people on my Twitter mentions last month,
Mhm.
whereby I sort of derided some very popular titles like Demon Slayer and Peacemaker and Book of Boba Fett and Legend of Vox Machina. And boy, wait till I tell you that Turning Red is a better film than Batman. I think I'm gonna be labeled as woke or whatever, but whatever. Okay, never mind.
Dude, Turning Red. Why were we not reviewing Turning Red?
We are.
We are.
It.
We are?
It's quick.
You can stick around after Diabolical, because Turning Red is the first topic of Quick Hits, so you can chime in on that one as
Oh
well.
yes, please. I love that show.
Oh, awesome. But next up though, we have the return of, after almost 2 years from its series premiere in May 2020, Upload
Yay.
finally back on Amazon Prime for season 2. If you've forgotten what it's about, I don't blame you.
It's been a while.
But you can listen to our glowing, super positive review of season 1 on Genre Equality 30. But for now, here's the gist. Upload is a sci-fi comedy from Greg Daniels, who was the showrunner of The Simpsons between seasons 3 and 10, which was
The best.
Prime Simpsons. He was the creator of The King of the Hill. He was the creator of the US version of The Office. And then he co-created Parks and Recreation with Mike Schur. We follow an app developer named Nathan, played by Robbie Amell, who is uploaded into a virtual afterlife called Lakeside by his girlfriend. It uses its familiar sci-fi premise of a digital afterlife to craft an incredibly funny anti-capitalist satire about how technology and class divisions and your financial woes continue to trouble you well after death. You see, this digital reality is neither paradise nor damnation because your wealth on earth determines how your idyllic afterlife can be or how idyllic your hereafter can be. The service is really just a means for companies to keep profiting from your consciousness as you continue to make purchases long after death. The afterlife is just an app with pop-up ads and different subscription tiers. You're programmed with all your earthly urges. So if you want to eat, you got to buy food. If you want new clothes, you got to buy new clothes. There's a lot of lag time when the system is stressed. It's far from ideal. Upload is really about the rots of capitalism, and the show excels at using fantastical concepts to examine real-life corporate greed and culture. At the end of season 1, we learn that Lakeview isn't all that it seems, and neither is Nathan. And neither is his death. Apparently, he was developing a free version of the Afterlife app, and he may or may not have been killed. There's a fun love triangle between himself and his angel worker Nora, played by Andy Allo, and his seemingly shallow girlfriend Ingrid, played by Allegra Edwards. There's a fantastic murder mystery twist. Ingrid shows up in the finale, having uploaded herself into Lakeview.
Oh, did she?
Well, did she? And in season 2, Upload maintains its core programming as this kind of charming, star-crossed lovers story in its sophomore season, but with more of an emphasis on the murder mystery and an escalation into a class warfare narrative. If anything, this is kind of the opposite of a sophomore slump.
Yeah.
We get new fun characters like Mateo, who is the leader of this anti-tech group called the Lutz, as
Good
well
name.
as a new as well as a new angel in training, Tinsley, who is also obsessed with Nathan. The season does a great job of adding new characters without forgetting the rest. I love that the series dove deeper into goofball Luke's life.
Me too. He's
You
actually
know,
quite selfless.
We learned that while on the outside he seems like a big kid, but he's actually a leader, a friend, and a military man that all his buddies respect. Upload also continues to embrace its bizarre sci-fi postulation in many dark ways, which is where the fun lies. Like, for starters, Nathan and Ingrid seriously consider adopting a baby in the afterlife, which is a farcical digital creation by Horizon. What better way to make eternity seem fruitful than the promise of an undying family? And in case there was any doubt, the computerized infants look just as creepy as they sound.
Exactly.
It is genuinely the scariest thing I've ever seen on screen. Horizon is starting to keep and sell the upload's thoughts and dreams as well. And whoever is uploaded, right?
Big data,
they're keeping the thoughts and dreams, big data, and they're starting to own them like IP. For example, they're selling wet dreams to porn sites, for example, you know. The satirical and brilliantly reflective world of Upload is still a genuine joy to watch. Do you think so, Hadi?
Yes. Again, it is one of those rare series that do not suffer from a sophomore slump. Thank God. Again, 7 episodes, really good because why? Tight as hell. Very fast, easy to watch. All characters have been given a new lease of development. Especially Luke. Luke has become my favorite character. And his love for Nathan is so awesome. Like best, you know, like that he's like the golden retriever, you know. That just
Mr. Peanut Butter.
Yeah, exactly. And so he's and I like that. You know, how he's always up for the adventures that Nathan wants to do. You know, the whole like going around New York and all that. And I like that he still has his crush. He this huge crush. Like it's like, you know how Nathan and Nora has this whole thing right going on, and now Luke's and his angels relationship is the exact opposite. Like he loves her and all that, and has a huge crush on her, but like totally not reciprocal. Even though like the angel kind of respects him a lot more after finding out more about him and kind of getting to know him a bit deeper. But the whole like porn thing was hilarious. The whole wet dream dream hub thing that was happening. I love that.
Yeah.
I liked how Upload continued to build on that murder mystery thing, because that was only at the end of the first season that it kind of like
Correct.
swiveled in, and so
Yep.
it became more of like a investigative thing going on lah,
Yep.
where we have Nora coming in to really help unknowingly Nathan
Yep.
in her own way lah. I'm
Yeah.
quite
Yeah.
curious to see where the whole police officer thing comes in, because he was the Japanese
C- Cybercrimes guy.
cybercrimes
Yeah.
guy was there but not really there.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's in the periphery throughout the entire series, but he hasn't. I mean, I'm guessing it'll be developed more in season 3, I guess.
Yes, season two was cut short because of pandemic production. It
Yeah.
was basically halted lah because of the pandemic, which is why it's only 7 and not the original planned 12 episodes.
Yeah.
So I think they really had a lot of plans for the cybercrimes guy and the lads and everything that
Yeah.
just never came together. I'm not holding it against Upload
No,
because
no.
I know pandemic production can be very difficult and that's why it was halted lah. But yeah, if there was one complaint about season 2, it's just that it felt incomplete.
Yeah.
But because of extenuating
Yeah,
circumstances.
and but it's still okay because it is in the periphery, but you kind of can tell that they're saving it for the future.
And they have plans for it. Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's fine. I just like the overall message about the whole life and death and capitalism thing all mixed into one. Is very futuristic, but at the same time grounded in a lot of reality. Very Black Mirror-ish lah, I guess. And
Yeah.
even though this might be the more light-hearted Black Mirror, right? It kind of has this darkness about it.
Yep.
That I enjoy. And the whole I like the whole Robin Hood aspect that they brought into Lakeview using through Nathan and Luke, for example.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I mean, the show is great at the Good Place style philosophical or existential conundrums. It doesn't quite reach the Good Place level, but it tries, and I like that it does. On top of that, it has multiple love stories to get invested in. The love triangle from season 1
Continues,
is extended without feeling cheap. Like the will they won't they, like it doesn't feel cheap. The series also explores what love is across different planes of existence through who is in whose body, which different mind or which different minds in different bodies. It can be love in a romantic sense or a familial sense or a friendship sense. In the case with Luke and Robbie, and while Nora and Nathan still have like this really sizzling chemistry, they are, I guess, what the kids say endgame. Allegra Edwards, who plays Nathan's girlfriend, I think does a fucking fantastic job of making this hoity-toity, rich, vapid, shallow, beautiful blonde one of the most endearing characters on the series. I'm glad the show keeps giving her unseen depth and vulnerability.
Yeah.
On the flip side, Andy Ello's Nora is still the show's kind of most appealing character. Nora has a lot to deal with. She was just recently almost assassinated. She becomes more involved in the anti-tech cult, I guess, determined to bring down Lakeview. Plus, she has to deal with her career,
and her dad,
romantic complications. She is the driving hero of the story, and she is actually the only one actively pulling the conspiracy strings on the outside, trying to unravel it, However, Nora isn't always in control of Nora's avatar, which lets Elo play multiple characters, or specifically Elo playing Tinsley, which is great. It's really impressive that it's so recognizable that it's someone else in Nora's body or Nora's avatar. So great acting there.
Yeah.
I think in the end, Upload's inviting and disarming charm takes audiences through the complexity of being a person, which is something Greg Daniels shows have always done very well, and it continues to deliver sharp commentary and solidifying its cogent approach to topical big tech issues while expanding its earnest elements. Upload is the rare series that can make a big picture point about the way we live now and might in the future, but doesn't get bogged down by its messaging or its world building. I think it remains grounded in characters and relationships with side gags and deep cutting wit as a bonus to the emotional story. What about you? Any final thoughts before we give our ratings?
Again, beautiful characters as usual. Expected from Greg Daniels.
Yeah.
Production, right?
Yep.
So yeah, great characters all around, really deep, and you are really invested in everybody, even the ones you hate, like Ingrid. You can't really hate her. You kind of understand why she's doing this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I can't wait to see where they go, because really I'm quite curious how. I mean, after the ending of episode 7, I'm like, oh no.
There are two Nathans now. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, I know. Oh, sorry.
There are two Nathans now.
Oh yeah. So I'm kind of curious where that's going.
Yep.
So yeah, we'll see. I mean, the whole idea of like consciousness about reality and all that stuff. Yeah, I cannot
The
wait.
whole ship of Theseus thing that Vision was talking
Yeah,
about is probably in play for season 3.
yeah.
If there is a flaw,
Mm.
it's that its villains feel very non-specific.
Yeah, it's a
Like,
big corporation with no face.
yeah, like no, I don't mean that. It's just that their villainy is very generic.
Oh
Like
yeah, of
billionaire
course,
villains like David Choke are one note. Mateo's fight against big tech is like very cliche and uncomplicated.
100% agree.
Even Nathan's mission statement of wanting to help the poor seems very kind of broad.
Very Robin Hood.
Like, yeah, it's just like it doesn't really have any specificity to it. Like, it's just very like generic,
Mm.
and that's probably the only flaw that I can find with Upload so far. And of course, it's truncated pandemic afflicted season made it feel incomplete in a
Mhm.
sense, which is why I'm giving it a 7.5 out of 10. What about
Yeah,
you?
7.5 sounds about right as well.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, cool. Next we're gonna be talking about The Boys Presents Diabolical.
Mm.
Like the Animatrix or What If or Star Wars Visions before it,
Mhm.
The Boys Diabolical is a loosely canonical animated anthology set within the delightfully vulgar and violent universe of The Boys.
Yeah.
Like those aforementioned shows, this one proves yet again that most franchises can benefit from giving a group of diverse creative voices free reign
Yeah,
to use the power of animation to tell unique stories.
exactly.
Though not every episode is a winner, it still stands as a hilarious, gross, sexy, hyper-violent addition to the VOD landscape. And while it is imperfect, it's still a must-watch for both fans of The Boys and the kind of subversive superhero stories we don't get to see too often.
Yeah.
Diabolical consists of 8 episodes running at around 8 to 10 minutes each. They all take place within the world of The Boys, and they are not strictly canon, at least not in the sense that they will heavily impact the main
Yeah.
series story
Yeah.
going forward. That means that looking for hints of what happens next in the story of Billy and Huey,
Very
like if you're
minimal.
there for that, you're not going to get that,
Yeah.
with the exception of the finale, which is very
Correct.
canon.
Yeah.
But everything else is take it or leave it as standalones.
Yeah.
And if you're open to just watching some fun, very breezy 8-minute stories with light connections to the main plot, they should find a lot to love in these like very freewheeling episodes like they have here. It's kind of like Star Wars Visions, as I said. Most episodes follow a similar beat in that they follow someone exposed to Compound V, the substance that gives people their powers, and things go very, very wrong. What do you think of The Boys Diabolical, Hadi?
First off, I love the variety of animation styles. We have a lot of that.
Yeah, that is the big highlight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like from a Looney Tunes esque kind of thing to
Yeah.
the more thing the more I'm Rick and Morty, right? Because Justin right?
Roiland. Yeah, dude, the Justin Roiland's episode was a Rick and Morty episode,
Exactly.
disguised as a boys episode.
Yeah, I think that was episode 2 if I'm not wrong.
Episode 2, I was like, wow, this is just straight up a Rick and Morty episode.
Correct, exactly.
Yeah.
And then to like more anime style kind of thing, all the way to a traditional American animation lah. So I like
Invincible style kind of
yeah.
thing.
So I like that.
Yeah.
I like that variety we have, and with that, the variety of stories that were given to us in very
Yep.
very 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 bite-sized episodes lah.
Yep.
Each explored, each kind of expanded the world a little more. With Compound V, social media, divorce,
Yep.
like, and how they are, and how it affects the world, and how these things, are in this world. I like that lah.
I mean, Compound B, if it were to exist, it would work its way into everything from social media to beauty products to recreational
everything.
pharmaceuticals,
Yeah.
everything, right? Yeah. It explores that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, to medical miracles and all that lah. So overall, I like that. I like the variety given. I like the world building, and all that. I enjoyed the last episode just to give an idea of the Homelander's origin a bit more.
Yeah, Eric Kripke, the creator of The Boys, actually said that like they didn't plan for any of the Diabolical episodes to be canon, but once they saw the finale, they were like, "Yeah, this one is 100% canon."
Yeah, and so good for it. Overall, it's a good little taste before June 3rd.
Yeah, I can't wait for the new Boys. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I highly recommend this. It's not perfect or anything like that. There's little flaws here and there. There's just boring episodes, as usual. in an
Mhm.
anthology, not all perfect or all of a high level. There's varying levels of quality.
Yeah.
But that's fine because overall I still had a lot of fun, and also because it's very, very short.
Yeah, even the bad episodes are like 5 minutes, whatever
Exactly.
lah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can get through that. Yeah. So
Yeah. One of my favorite episodes is probably one of the most fan service heavy
Which one?
episodes, which has the original comic creator Garth Ennis writing the story.
Okay.
With gloriously gory results. The episode features an art style reminiscent of Derek Robertson's illustrations in the comics, and it even has Simon Pegg, who inspired Huey's original design as Huey's voice. Finally, it was very sad because when the boys finally went live action, right, Simon Pegg was
too old.
everybody's dream casting for Huey, aged out of the role, so he had to play Huey's dad.
Yeah.
But this episode kind of serves as the fulfillment of that, fan casting from Wizard magazine, like back in the 90s. Like, I like that. But the very best episodes to me were the Looney Tunes episodes. It had great like Animaniacs composers on the soundtrack as well, so it really felt very Looney Tunes. But one episode that I super loved is the one that is inspired by Korean watercolor paintings.
Yes, I know the shot.
It's really nice about the man trying to save his wife who's dying of cancer, and he's trying to use compound tea for it.
penultimate episode. Yeah.
Yes, like I really love that, and it features the Oscar-winning woman, the Korean woman, Yo Jun-oh, I think from Minari as the voice of the dying woman.
And
I think it's
and
very
the watchmaker.
Great.
The keymaker from The Matrix.
Yeah. It's actually weirdly enough written and directed by Andy Samberg, who is not known for this type of very dramatic. And Brooklyn Nine-Nine's Andy Samberg. Palm Springs, Andy Samberg.
Wow.
Lonely Island, Andy Samberg actually wrote this one.
Oh wow! I had no idea.
Neither did I.
Yeah, it was really good. And Yeon Yu Jung, sorry, I finally got a name right. Yeon Yu Jung from Minari is really great in it as well. The funniest episode is the Rick and Morty episode, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think Diabolical doesn't reach the same heights as the main show.
Nah.
But the unhinged and varied use of animation still more than carves out a place for this as being a bloody good appetizer until season 3 arrives.
Agreed.
Not super consistent, but plaudits must be given to the creativity on display here. 7 out of 10 for me. What about you? Final thoughts and rating?
Yeah, I'll give it a 7 out of 10 just because of some inconsistencies in the episodes, but in terms of quality lah. But really good episodes, really bad episodes, altogether 7 out of 10 sounds like a fair grade.
Yes, absolutely. Next up, let's talk about Turning Red, Pixar's latest movie, which controversial opinion, best film of the year. Not of the year, of this month at least. What do you guys think?
That's a super controversial line just because of the conversations going around lah. Turning Red.
Sure.
But in terms of, I have to agree with you. I mean, this is one of those movies that you will cry on lah, during certain points. And
have you seen?
No, I have
Red?
not got Turning Red, but it's on my to-watch list for sure.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay. Before we delve into the controversies of Turning Red or what makes it great, this is directed by Domi Shi, who won an Oscar for her first directorial effort. Do you remember the lovely Pixar short Bao? That was Domi Shi, and this is her first feature debut, first feature film. And Turning Red is a coming-of-age fantasy comedy that makes the coming-of-age part literal. It is set in 2002 Toronto and follows the uber-confident Mei Lin Lee, voiced by breakout star Rosalie Chiang, who is a Chinese-Canadian 13-year-old who does what she wants and says what she wants, except in the presence of her parents. Mei was raised in that classic first-generation Asian immigrant way to revere and respect her parents' wishes, while living a double life to hide her own burgeoning identity and urges and Western influences. Mei is happy with this double life. She loves her parents, loves the temple that they run. She plays the red panda mascot for the temple. She also loves fangirling over dreamy boy band Four Town with her friends. The supportive Miriam, the deadpan Priya, who is voiced by Never Have I Ever star Matrey Ramakrishnan, by the way, and her other friend, the excitable Abby, the Korean girl. It's the one guilty pleasure she keeps secret from her overprotective mom, who is voiced by Sandra Oh. But Mei's perfect if precarious life is about to get upended by the great beast we've all faced.
Mhm.
Not the red panda, but puberty. For May, puberty manifests itself in a much wilder way than most.
Mhm.
When May develops a crush on a teen drugstore clerk, her doodles of him are discovered by her mother, who humiliates her by storming into the drugstore and berating the very confused clerk in front of May's classmates to see. That night, May replays the humiliation over and over in her mind, and something activates. She dreams of the red panda god at the altar of her parents' temples, and its eyes glow. When she wakes up the next morning, she's horrified to discover that she has transformed into a giant red panda. As it turns out, this power is actually passed down in her family through the generations of daughters.
Mhm.
It's a gift triggered by stress and anxiety that was useful on the battlefields of old, but rather inconvenient in modern day.
Mhm.
May learns to control the emergence of her furball alter ego by keeping a lid on her emotions, drawing on a zen calm that she gets from being around her friends. But do you remember being 13? How feasible it is, how unfeasible it is for a 13-year-old to stop feeling extreme emotions?
Yeah.
I mean, every emotion at that age is an extreme emotion.
Mhm.
Her mom deems it too dangerous for a child to coexist with the red panda and prepares for a temple ritual that will contain the beast on the night of the next red moon. I think this is such a charming coming of age movie that not only looks beautiful but tackles some very deep, culturally specific themes. Its tangle of mother daughter relationships, the urge for approval butting up against the hunger for emancipation, is explored across the generations, with anxiety fueled by the panda god history and May's mother's relationship with her own mother. What do you think of Turning Red, Hadi?
Um, I enjoyed it because first of all, when you watch this movie, you need to know that it's not written for you. You know
Sure,
what I mean? And that doesn't mean you cannot enjoy it, lah. And
sure.
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the world building. You know, the whole metaphor of the red panda. I love the dynamics of the girls. You know, and how
Mhm.
different they are. The whole relationship between the mom and Maylin, brilliantly
Yep.
done. Uh, Everything was so deep, so well thought of, and like you could tell from that it was based on a lot of realities of people, kids who lived through that era, lah, the early 2000s, where when they were going through puberty during that time, lah.
Yeah, I think part of the reason I responded to it so much is obviously I was never a girl who became a red
Of
panda,
course,
but
but we went
I
through
was a
puberty
boy.
during that time.
I was a boy who went through puberty at the age of in 2002 during the age of boy bands and all of
Same.
that. Like I think I would have been a four townie back in the day. I think if it
Sure.
were a real
I
band.
mean,
Yeah,
I love my BSB, man, back then.
BSB, A Town or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever lah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the whole like that hyper emotional state that you were in at the
Yeah.
ages of like 13 to 16, you could remember how stupid it was.
Yep.
But it doesn't mean that it's invalidated or it's not something that should be talked about. But rather, I feel that this movie does that very well, lah, where they talk about those really insane like years lah of growing up, because that it doesn't
Mm.
make sense. Nothing makes sense during that period of time.
Yep.
Everything was confusing. There was new things that you're feeling that you never felt in your life before. You know, from things like heartbreak, to sadness, to like deep depressions and all that. It's insane. So yeah, so I think that the Turning Red does very well in addressing those issues of kids going through puberty, especially young girls that are going through puberty, which I think is something that not many films have talked about.
Not to mention, I think this is the first time in big screen, in a big screen at least, or at least in animated form, that Asian family dynamics have been portrayed so authentically and so accurately too.
Yeah, and not in a tropey way. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly.
Yeah, which
Exactly.
is really refreshing.
Yep.
That the reality of the first, I think, yeah, the first generation, going through,
Going against the second generation who
yeah,
grew up in a Western influence,
yeah,
or in a Western country.
and the
Yep.
traumatic past of her mom as well, being
Yeah.
pushed onto her daughter and all that stuff. I love that
Mhm.
kind of storytelling, where we actually explore that traumatic past.
Absolutely. I think the details of it is what makes it so great. The details of the 2002 era, which we all recognize, from the type of music they listen to to the clothes that they wore, to everything. It's so well done. The Asian family dynamics, which we all recognize as well.
Yeah.
I think the arguments between me and her mother are quite relatable and universal, despite how specific it is. Suspense is built into the storytelling through the knowledge that each time the panda is unleashed, it gets stronger, making it less likely that the ritual will succeed.
Yeah.
So May might be bound to the creature forever, but there's also May's internal conflict of learning to lose control now and then. I think just like any teenager, while struggling with a deep-rooted fear of disappointing her mother, she might need to let the beast rage once in a while. And in keeping with the life or death importance given to most things in a 13-year-old's world, the main stakes of the movie is that she might have to miss a 4-town concert. And yes, it is not the end of the world or somebody's death or anything.
But to that child.
But you remember at that age when you thought like, oh shit, my mom doesn't allow me to go to concert.
Exactly.
It felt like the highest of stakes, and I totally understand that. And Turning Red navigates the line between honoring family and exploring personal freedoms exceptionally well. And it deals it through the lens of dealing with mothers with high expectations and the foibles of those mothers themselves. And Turning Red is also a loving portrait of teen friendship. I think May Spell's instant acceptance of her transformation yields some exhilarating bonding moments. Visually, the style of the film influences, I draw a lot from the influence of anime and Chinese watercolors in many sequences, blending well with Pixar's in-house art style. Turning Red is one of the most visually stimulating animated films to come out of Pixar for a long while, and an intriguing glimpse of how the future of CG animation can be improved by blending with 2D animation. In terms of story, it's kind of like a blend of the deep insight and painful millennial tween relatability of Pen 15, alongside Agretsuko, which is another great show about a red panda dealing with overwhelming emotions through music.
Heavy metal music.
Meilin is boy bands, Agretsuko is death metal, but same thing. Turning Red is so original and funny and tender, and an affectionate reminder that adolescence is the time when life is not easily tamed, and sometimes the animal inside us need to be released once in a while. That's why I love this film, and that's why I think it's Pixar's best film since Coco. What about you?
I mean, okay, to address some of the controversy that has surrounded this film.
Sure.
One of the things that
by white men, right?
Yeah, exactly. Think of all the boys, the boys coming out of age narrative films.
Every coming of age narrative film since the dawn of time has been about boys.
Right? Exactly. So many of those. And just one that is just focused on a girl, it suddenly becomes like cringe, taboo. You're teaching your children to misbehave, to go against your parents and all that. Like missing the main point of this fucking movie.
Anybody ever said that about Ferris Bueller's Day Off? No, right? Because he was a white boy.
Exactly. And so that annoys the shit out of me. Like, come on, man. Like, don't have to say. I mean, watch it properly, lah.
Are these the same people that thought like, Black Panther was not inclusive to white people?
Most probably, lah. Most probably.
Yeah.
Like, there was Cinema Blend actually published a thing where they accused the film of being racist and sexist.
Yeah, against men and against white people. How can we enjoy this? We don't understand this experience.
Then don't watch movies.
Or only watch like Fight Club or whatever you like.
Just watch movies about white people. Like, come on, man. Like, I mean, Coco was such a great coming of age film about a boy, right?
I guarantee those people didn't like Coco also.
Oh yeah, most probably.
Why are you teaching my children about these other cultures?
I mean, Encanto, I guess, is another coming of age for a girl.
Sure, yeah. Did you see the backlash of Encanto?
Also, yeah, the same thing also.
It's the same people. I mean, I myself thought Encanto was a fine film. It wasn't great,
but I love the story behind it. The same way I love Turning Red. Yeah.
Boy, I mean, Encanto, like, it was an okay film with like a couple of bangers in its soundtrack, which really saved the film.
Bruno,
I mean, we don't talk about Bruno. It's great,
best.
But Surface Pressure is mad underrated, and I think it's a better song.
I
think it's a better song than Bruno.
Agreed.
Yeah, but we're getting sidetracked.
Turning Red, again, beautiful film. I really recommend anyone to watch it. Like, just watch it. Appreciate the message it's trying to bring out. And appreciate something that's new and engaging lah.
Yeah, storytelling is supposed to be an empathy machine. You're supposed to learn about other people and
Exactly.
different types of people. So be open lah, because red panda monsters are not real, but Asian teen girls are a real demographic. Boy,
Exactly.
they exist in this world, and don't they deserve a film like this too? So why
Sure,
not?
why not?
It's an 8 out of 10 for me.
Oh.
And do you agree? Do you agree that it is Pixar's best since Coco?
No, I agree with you 100%.
What about Soul? A lot of people like to point out Soul.
Soul is good in terms of the Soul is great, but I think I prefer Turning Red.
Yeah,
Slightly.
I think Pixar's canon since Coco has been varied from mediocre, which is Onward, to very good, which is Soul, and then there's some films in the middle there, like Luca.
Yeah, Luca's
But,
great too. I like Luca.
But Turning Red is better than all of them, which
Yeah.
is why I called it the best since Coco, and it's an 8 out of 10.
Sure.
What about you?
Agreed. 8 out of 10. Agree with you. Best is Coco.
Absolutely, okay. And that wraps it up for Hardy's.
Hey, I'm done.
Hey.
Hardy's commitment to this month's hard hits plot. Sorry, genre equality.
Yes.
He'll be back next month though to talk about the final season of Attack on Titan,
Yeah.
as well as
Severance.
Severance, which at this point in time, I'm rating a 10 out of 10.
So far.
This might be a spoiler for next week. I've not found a flaw in the show.
Yeah. Because
It's-
you have watched the whole thing, I have not.
I'm rewatching it now just to see whether 10 out of 10 is deserved,
Okay.
because like Station 11 was a no-brainer 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
But I'm wary of doing another 10 out of 10 so soon.
Yeah.
But at this moment, I'm like, boy,
No flaws.
I can't find a flaw in
Yeah.
the show. This is so good. But yeah, so we'll delve into that next month. Thanks so much, Hardy.
Thanks,
No
Adi.
problem.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
All right, bye, guys.
And now we're going to delve into Quick Hits, which is the little segment that that I do to talk about the films and TV shows that my co-host may not have had time to watch yet. First up is probably the highlight of Quick Hits this month. It is Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. 2 months before Doctor Strange 2 comes out, we have Michelle Yeoh in her version of the Multiverse of Madness. This is helmed by directing duo The Daniels. Michelle Yeoh plays a Chinese immigrant matriarch named Evelyn Wang, who operates a laundromat with her husband Raymond in the United States. As the movie opens, her business is being audited by the IRS, which adds to the stress of her already dour life. As if her tax woes weren't enough, she's saddled with personal issues as well. Nothing she does is good enough for her father, Gong Gong, played by James Hong, which in turn informs the way Evelyn treats her exasperated adult daughter, Joy, played by Stephanie Su. So this is in a way a bit of a thematic sequel to Turning Red, and it's been a really great month for Hollywood movies exploring Chinese family dynamics.
Yeah.
But oh boy, this is way weirder than Turning Red. Like Turning to Red Panda is weird, but this is very 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 weird. You see, Evelyn's husband Raymond has drawn up divorce papers, but instead of serving them, he's overcome by a quivering sensation on the way to the tax office, whereby a variant version of Raymond from a parallel universe occupies his body, possesses him. This more agile proxy performs an impromptu mental scan of Evelyn, instructing her how to access her alternate lives, unlocking all kinds of kooky Charlie Kaufman-esque possibility. Evelyn doesn't know what to think, but she follows Varian Raymond's directions, which allow her to verse jump. In a sense, her consciousness jumps into alternate universe bodies. She tries it for the first time in the middle of the Wang's family meeting with Deirdre, who is this surly IRS agent, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, who looks hilariously frumpy. Like, this is one of Jamie Lee Curtis's best roles in recent years. And for Evelyn, who only half understands English, this audit is already very uncomfortable, and the movie ensures that it's every bit as unpleasant for us, because it's made even bumpier by coinciding with a virgin verse jump. The first time she's jumping into another body. So you're watching 2 scenes play out via split screen and blurry overlay, and it conveys the effect for Evelyn, how it must be to multitask multiple conversations in 2 places at once. Things only get more intimidating from there as the verse jumping Raymond explains the rules that an alternate Evelyn has discovered. Apparently, this alt Evelyn is some sort of big brain physicist in another dimension, whereas where she learns that this our Evelyn, the Evelyn we're following, is living the worst possible life in this one.
Okay.
Meaning that every other Evelyn in every other potential universe has made more successful love choices. One is a big Hong Kong action star, like the real Michelle. One is a Peking opera singer, and one is a teppanyaki style chef, for example. And the Daniels present as many of these realities as possible in short, zany micro sketches. There's even a universe where everyone has hot dogs for fingers. It's very Rick and Morty, but if Rick and Morty were directed by the 1999 Wachowskis. So it's that kind of vibe. Soon, a demented alternate version of Deirdre, the RRS agent, comes after Evelyn like an evil tax collecting Terminator, but she's not even the main villain. The main villain is Evelyn's daughter, the one who mom has blamed for everything in her life being disappointing,
Shit.
her poor daughter. So it's come to the point where Joy has finally snapped and she reinvents herself as a new entity called Jobu Tupaki, who jumps from universe to universe, murdering every Evelyn that's ever existed. All of this plays out like a delirious martial arts multiverse fever dream. It's maximalist and overstuffed with ideas and random asides, like there's a universe that can't sustain life in which Evelyn and Joy appear as rocks. In the middle, there is a meta joke fake ending where we sit through fate credits at the halfway mark because another universe's Evelyn has died. There's a fanny pack flight sequence. There's even an irreverent bit in which security guards use butt plugs as multiverse portals. It's very like Rick and Morty madness, presented with rapid editing, like a work of kind of slap happy genius as the filmmakers do what their title says. The filmmakers are trying to do everything everywhere all at once. For the first hour and a half or so, all this chaotic imagination feels fresh and magical.
Yeah.
You're just in disbelief that the movie this insane got made. But after the second hour, it sort of becomes a bit unrelenting and wearisome. You start to get a bit of a headache from all the maximalist sensory overload. It's a novel idea driven to the point of exhaustion at the end. But I think at the end of the day, I always prefer something that's like weird and fresh and new.
Yeah.
Rather than something like the Batman. So this is 7.5 out of 10 for me.
Nice. Okay.
Next up is a movie called After Yang. It is an A24 film. It's based on a short story called Saying Goodbye to Yang by Alexander Weinstein. It is set in a genre that might be best described as soft futurism or quiet sci-fi. It's set in a near distant future, and we follow a family doing what families do. They are just a normal family. They love, laugh, share experiences. We are introduced to a particular multiracial family of protagonists via the opening sequence, which is a vibrant virtual video game dance tournament, like a Dance Revolution dance tournament where families across the world have to dance in sequence, and the family that dances the best wins.
Yeah.
This DDR intro is outstanding, and it rivals Oscar Isaac's disco boogie scene from Ex Machina.
Wow.
The real major difference in technology in this world is the advent of techno sapiens, which are humanistic, realistic AI androids that live among us. In the case of this particular family, Yang is acquired to be the older brother and companion of Mika, who is an Asian girl who was adopted by her white father Jack, played by Colin Farrell, and her black mother Kira, played by Jodie Turner-Smith. So the sentient humanoid looks Chinese and is programmed with Chinese cultural knowledge so that he can teach Micah about her Chinese heritage, language, and roots. Something that her parents can't give her because she's adopted. Life is normal for the family until one day Yang begins to malfunction and then switches to a dormant state. So they're crestfallen about their beloved Yang, and little Micah can't concentrate on school. And Jack, who is a thoughtful, introspective boutique tea shop owner, begins a journey of getting Yang fixed. But this task is full of unexpected and frustrating challenges that test this normally untroubled and caring family and the father's resolve. The film is humanist in its extreme. I think unlike other sci-fi, it asks no large sociological or abstract questions. Rather, it explores very personal ideas of identity, what it means to love, grieve, and to be a family. It is directed by a South Korean auteur named Kogonada. And After Yang is a really beautiful and contemplative mood piece or tone poem that prompts you to look inward as well. Kogonada has the most superb eye for composition, and he can delicately break your heart with luminous and exquisitely crafted frames. This is a film about that precise moment in time when a child starts to kind of gently, curiously inquire about what death is, what happens when we die, and then begins to sadly grapple with the concept that all things must die, including the things that we love the most. It's a lot to grasp, and After Yang occupies a similar space, one of innocence and tenderness and heartache and that reflective contemplation of life, death, and existence from a childlike perspective, but one that quickly matures into something much more profound. All of this is bolstered by many Asian sensibilities of stillness and minimalism. I think After Yang is marked by tranquility and Zen like qualities that are entrancing and absolutely captivating. Some people might find it slow, but I find the Zen like framing and pacing very mesmerizing. Colin Farrell in this regard is outstanding, compelling, and he forces you to lean in and listen attentively to his quiet movements and soft spoken words. It is one of his best and most mesmerizing performances.
Fascinating.
It is the exact opposite of what he does with the Penguin. Um, as the After Yang riddle and mystery unfolds, specifically Jack hacking into and learning more about Yang's past life and experiences that he's taken in, this is not Yang's first family. He's been with many other families. So he learns of Yang's memories, ones of joy and sadness and anguish and more. Kagonada's film crescendos into a lovely, towering work of empathy and compassion. This is kind of a wistful contemplation of how all things must end, and it's a deeply moving one. It's like a quieter version of Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, or Steven Spielberg's AI, which is based on that book. And what wonders have they experienced? This really delves into that. After Yang is a terrific existential take on those big human condition questions about robots, AI, their capacity for humanity, and what it all reflects and says about our own understanding of life. It's poignant and poetic. After Yang is a soulful and heartbreaking meditation on impermanence, and it's full of poignant wonder and of human grace. It's an 8 out of 10 for me. Very, very highly rated.
Wow.
So go catch After Yang if you can. It's an A24 film. I'm going to quickly run through the rest. Next up is DMZ. DMZ is based on the acclaimed comic book of the same name by Brian Wood and Riccardo Boccinelli. It is set in an alternate future in a timeline where the US has fractured due to a second American Civil War. Manhattan has become a demilitarized zone between the United States of America and the splinter Free States of America. We follow a doctor named Alma, played by Rosario Dawson, who breaks into the DMZ to look for a missing son. Alma is soon caught up in an ongoing battle for the streets between two rival gangs, each gang led from a man from her former life. One is Paco Delgado, played by Benjamin Brett, who is her ex-husband, who is a gangster. Even before the war began, he is the leader of the Latin Kings. He controls half of the city. On the flip side, we have Wilson, played by Hoon Lee, who runs Chinatown and his own gang. Wilson and Wilson and Alma, played by Rosario Dawson, once worked together in a medical clinic before the war, so they remember each other fondly. She seeks out both men, hoping that one of them knows something about her son, and that's when she's forced to deal with this new reality. And despite a premise that promises to be topical and relevant with a capital R, given the urgent developments in American politics or the divisive American politics in recent years,
Yeah.
the culture war in recent years, January 6th and all of that, DMC is strangely apolitical. It seems to be playing safe, kind of making general statements about power to the people or democracy or community without really exploring the nitty gritty of anything.
Interesting.
DMZ is basically a 1 hour pilot stretched to 4 very bloated, uneven hours. It's full of big ideas about civics and what it means to be a citizen, but it never really delves deep into it, and the characters aren't given room to grow. So it's a 5 out of 10. It's a great pilot, but not a great 4 episode. So yeah, a bit sad about how this ended up. Next up is Human Resources, which is a spin-off of the popular animated comedy Big Mouth. And
Yep.
the series focuses on the work environment of the hormone monsters, which is an interesting concept.
Yeah.
It follows a new character played by Edie Bryant, who is a love bug assigned her first client, but it also guest stars all the hormone monsters that we come to know from the Parent series. This is like a cross between Big Mouth, The Office, and perhaps a more unrestrained, vulgar version of Inside Out.
Interesting.
And Human Resources examines where the most intense human experiences come from. The first season of the spin-off series explores love, horniness, humiliation, and anxiety in humans, and also dives into the ways that emotions themselves develop. Hormone monsters, depression kitties, shame wizards, love bugs, and more of these type of monsters navigate a shared workplace and the human world, where they take turns making each other's jobs harder. Love bugs can't do their work without fighting hormone monsters, screwing each other on desks. Anxiety mosquitoes get on each other's nerves. Logic rocks don't appreciate grief monsters, egging humans to sob spontaneously or go into depression.
Mm-hmm.
The creatures' interactions, even without the human subjects on the main show, also explore the complicated inner workings of humanity. Human resources thrives in the moments when we are allowed to see the creatures dealing with the same messy conflicts that humans often do, and grapple with how their own interpersonal struggles affect their ability to do their jobs. Human resources demonstrates how varying moods and emotions are affected by one another.
Mm-hmm.
Hormones and love and anxiety are not mutually exclusive; they're interrelated, right? And that interrelation is what makes the world great.
Yeah.
The world of human resources great. But like its parent show,
Mm-hmm.
human resources often struggles in transitioning between heartfelt storylines and earnest moments with kind of the more vulgar dick jokes.
Yeah.
The plot lines about the difficulties of handling emotions and aligning our actions with our values often ricochet too quickly to raunchy jokes about penises. Instead of openness, characters lean into risque behavior, which kind of flattens arcs that could have been made more bold and more satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
I think kind of like what I said about Big Mouth season 5,
Yeah.
this new show attempts to ground itself in the creature's inner worlds, but when true opportunities for vulnerability pop up, that possibility for deeper understanding of why they are who they are is too frequently substituted for a sex scene or a pun about cum. As such, it can feel like there isn't enough time for the characters to grow into something beyond tropes. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a 6 out of 10 for me as well.
I see.
Yeah, finally, I'm going to delve into the Adam Project, which is coming to you from Ryan Reynolds and the team behind Free Guy. This is Netflix's new sci-fi action film.
Mm-hmm.
It follows a time-traveling pilot who teams up with his younger self and his late father to come to terms with the past while saving the future. This one strives to be reminiscent of the disposable blockbusters of the mid 90s, from Emblem Entertainment. And it does succeed, I think, in being fast food sci fi,
Yeah.
kind of, artificially flavored and quickly devoured. This is the kind of like post Goonies, family oriented schmaltz that is inoffensive but also unoriginal in every way. And ultimately, it ends up being derivative drivel that is neither bad nor good, it's just bland. You also got the Adam Project. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, like, it's what you would expect. I think like just like looking at the trailer of it itself, it's pretty much what you expect it to be. Some of
Yep.
the CGI is pretty good, I have to say. Some of the fight scenes
Mm.
are pretty impressive. But that's kind of like the whole deal with the Adam Project, right? Like hidden by Ryan Reynolds, and it's not, it just feels like they needed to churn out one more, and that's what we got. Honestly, also because it's time travel, right? Like a lot of the hand waving for time travel things is just
Mm.
so lazy, so lazy. But sure,
Yep.
you want something mindless on Netflix for whatever reason, then yeah, go ahead.
There are a lot of mindless things on Netflix, and a lot of them are better than Adam
Oh
Project.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Next up, though, we'll delve into Ice's Anime Corner, which for the
Yes,
first time or in a long time includes a film.
yes.
Let's go into Anime Corner now. What do you have for us, Isa?
Okay, so I'm gonna start off with probably the biggest thing for this particular month. So we got the
Yeah.
new Jujutsu Kaisen movie, Jujutsu
Called
Kaisen
Zero,
Zero,
right?
which
Yep.
is a prequel to the series, the first season of the series that is currently out already.
Mm.
Within it, we follow Yuta Okotsu, who is a new character to the series, or rather, he's someone that we haven't seen appear yet. Um,
Mm.
in the mainline series itself. He is a haunted child and has been haunted ever since his close childhood friend, whom he made a pact with, died horrifically in a traffic accident. And her specter is essentially stuck with him, right? Throughout his growing years, this specter called Rika has
Mm.
been protecting him, I guess, from the various bullies who would pick on him throughout that, which led to an incident where many of those bullies basically died horrifically and bloodily. Right. This
Mm.
gets him picked up by our favorite all time, Gojo Satoru, who comes to pick him up and instead, once again, of executing him, uh, decides that, you know what, let's turn him into a sorcerer and see how he does in school, if
Yeah.
that sounds familiar enough to that.
Yeah.
With this jump back in time, Yuta is once again, or not once again, Yuta is introduced to the previous class of the Tokyo branch of Jujutsu High. So we do see some returning
Mm.
characters. As far as returning in the prequel goes, we see younger versions of Panda, Inumaki, and Maki, who are his co-stars essentially, or in supporting roles for this particular story. Uh,
Mm.
it turns out that um, Geto, who is also a villain that's featured in the mainline series itself, has had his eye on Rika in particular. And that sets up the main kind of conflict and the main kind of battles for what we are having in Jujutsu Kaisen Zero. So I'm
Yep.
not going to go past that because I do think there's some major spoilers. But that's the
Mm.
essential premise of what's going on. It gives us a lot of lore and fills up a lot of the backstory that I don't think we get in the mainline series itself. A much better idea of how exactly the world of sorcerers work within
Mm.
Jujutsu Kaisen, and
Yep.
maybe some of the kind of like red tape and bureaucracy that goes on behind kind of the running of the schools, and expands a little on some of the character backstories of the minor characters in the series. Jujutsu
Mm.
Kaisen is a fantastic example of what happens when you give masters of animation like Mappa movie money.
Oh yeah, Maple. Okay.
Oh
Yeah.
my god. The fight scenes here are full blown and epic. And even like the minor fight scenes that lead up to the main one, right? Like feel really, really like impactful and well fleshed out. However, I have to say that Jujutsu Kaisen Zero suffers from the same problem that we had with Mugen Train for Demon Slayer, in which it
Mm.
feels as though this movie would have been better served as a short limited series instead of a full blown movie.
I
While the
see.
runtime is fairly long for an anime movie, just over an hour and 45 minutes, it does feel that a lot of the pacing feels rushed in a way that is uncomfortable. A lot of the emotional moments, especially for the first two acts, feel unearned and extremely shoehorned into place, right?
Mm.
You get to like tears and into like emotional states that don't feel fully fleshed out or developed. Those moments feel more like exposition than they do like genuine like high points within the film itself.
Yep.
That being said, the climax is exciting and exhilarating. The
Okay.
fight is, oh man, I think for this year might be one of the fights of the year in my opinion.
Sweet.
um
Okay.
and yeah, it is uh it still struggles in the end with kind of the power leveling problem that we were talking about in
Mm.
the entertainment district itself. So
Yep.
while this does have its issues, if you are a fan of the main series of Jujutsu Kaisen as a whole, I think this does bring more to the table than it does not. And it is
Mm.
the flaws of it are forgivable for the final product that it does bring to you. Also, in
Mm.
the end, it does set up some interesting things for season two, which is coming very soon. So, all in all, I'm going to
Nice.
give Jujutsu Kaisen the movie a 7 out of 10. I really, really
Okay.
enjoyed it. I would have made it higher if they had done the pacing a little better. And again, I
Yep.
really wish this was like a 5 or 6 part kind of like
Mm.
series where they had more time to delve into the characters and all that, because it really does feel very rushed.
Gotcha. Okay. Fair.
Yes. So I'm gonna dive into the winter season. That's, well, kind of late. So a lot of the series are gonna be having their last couple of episodes while we're there. First of all, I'm
Mm.
gonna very quickly go through the stuff that either we've already talked about or are returning series from this. For this particular one, obviously there
Yep.
is the biggest of the lot, which is Attack on Titan, the final season, part two. Of which, if you
Mm.
are kind of already caught up and you would like to see, Hidzir has a wonderful article already on that, which we posted up on our socials as well. But
Yep.
we will be discussing that in depth together with Hadi
Mm.
next month for genre equality.
Yes.
There's also Demon Slayer, the Entertainment District, which we already did a deep dive into about what we liked and our complaints were on the last episode, 51 of Genre Equality as well. And just kind of a small shout out to season 2 of How the Realist Hero Rebuilt the Kingdom. I think I mentioned it in one of my notable mentions a couple of episodes back. It continues to be kind of a very light isekai things that borders on being kind of educational with the economy, war strategy, politics, and all of that. The character work is poor. The world building is not great, but the fact that it does offer like really good insight to a way a kingdom should be run from multiple facets, much in the
Yeah.
same way we've talked about how we like Spice and Wolf and so on and so forth. Yeah, I've been enjoying the season as well. As for new anime, this
Yeah.
season is a bit of a lean pickings as far as we've seen over the last 1 year or so. And
Okay.
kind of like wrapping up the winter season here, we are completely dominated by slice of life anime. Right. So I usually have 3 big recommendations, but this time around I only have 2. One of which really caught me by surprise. I'm gonna dive in first to something that I've been raving about for a while since it kind of came out, because I didn't expect for it to be as good as it is, and that is My Dress Up Darling. So in My Dress Up Darling, we follow high school student Gojo Wakana, who comes from a family of Japanese doll makers, Japanese Hina dolls. And his entire life up to that point has been in the pursuit of becoming kind of like a doll maker master, but much like his grandfather, right?
Sure.
uh, at the point in time when we meet him, he has, found absolute bliss in this pursuit of his craft, in the sewing clothes for his dolls, and his practicing of drawing the doll faces. But he goes to great lengths to kind of hide this hobby, I guess, because he believes that he will be ridiculed as a result if it were to come out. Lo and behold, enter Kitagawa Marin, who is the absolute opposite of this very shy, reserved, unknown high school boy in school. She is his extremely popular classmate, who is really pretty, whose confidence, kind of like spills out all over the place, in addition to other things. And the two of them discover, or rather, Marin discovers that uh, Gojo has the amazing ability to be great with a sewing machine, right? And it turns out that she is a huge otaku who loves, or rather, loves the idea of going into cosplay. Therein begins a very strange kind of friendship where she basically um, recruits him to start making cosplay costumes for her. And that's kind of the premise of the story. What it turns out to be, right, is a very heartwarming and cute story of teen romance and teen horniness, and this very strange reconciliation between two sides of Japanese culture, one extremely traditional and the other extremely pop. And how maybe the obsession or the obsessiveness of those cultures as an otaku and like a traditional doll maker aren't necessarily as different as it would seem. And yeah, I've been really, really enjoying this. There are a lot of extremely great laugh out loud moments at Gojo's expense as kind of like a reserved, shy teen boy. I will have to say, as a kind of warning and or advertisement, that this is a very horny, very fan servicey series. If anything, like the meme going around right now is that they spent more resources on several key boob physics animations than like some entire series have probably spent in their entire budget, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But none of it feels like particularly lewd or out of place, simply because the protagonists that we are talking about are like full-blooded teenagers at a time in their life where they're trying to understand both themselves and their identity and their sexuality as well. And that plays out in a much more palatable way, I think, than a lot of fan service stuff does. Right? I don't
Yep.
usually push fan service stuff here on genre equality, but I think within the world of my dress up darling, it feels like it is at the right tone and kind of like the right place. Yeah,
Mm.
so that's like 10 episodes in. I think we got 2 more episodes to go, but I really, really enjoyed this. It reminds me a lot of another anime that I talked about I think it's called Down the Runway, where it's about a model that's too short to be a runway model and an aspiring designer who happen to meet each other online, and that develops their relationship. This has a lot of a
Yep.
similar vibe to it, but with tons more kind of like high school romance and drama folded into it as well.
Mm. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so that is my dress up darling. The next on my list, which is the one that caught me more by surprise, that recently came out on Netflix if you're in Singapore, is called
Mm.
Kotarou Lives Alone. And
Okay.
premise of this is fairly simple, with extremely surprising results. Basically, we follow a boy called Sato Kotaru who moves into one of those like 2-story apartment buildings with really small, like 7 tatami mat rooms. Uh,
Mm.
uh, on his own. And he's 4 years old. He moves right next to Karino Shin, who is a mangaka, I guess. Like he's mangaka adjacent, given that he's constantly out of employment during that
Okay.
time, right?
Yep.
He also moves in together with a lady who is a hostess at a host club at night.
Mm.
And well, what I get would be a Yakuza adjacent in one of the other things. What
Yep.
starts out as a very kind of like cute, funny exploration of like found family and the mystery of why a 4-year-old boy is staying on his own becomes a very meaningful and quietly heartbreaking story about child trauma, abandonment, and abuse that is worked into it in such a subtle way that it both brings a smile to your face in its lighter moments, but is absolutely tear jerking at the same time.
Mm.
Kotaru Lives Alone was more devastating than some of the straight out like dramas, anime dramas that I have seen in recent times, just because of the way that it is both addressed in terms of the fact of the matter that it is a part of society, that there are these kids who exist who don't have enough to eat, or because of their living circumstances, or what their parents are up to, simply have to find a way to survive in a world that's dominated by adults that may or may not care.
Yep.
In that sense, Kotaru is lucky because of his found family and all the
Mm.
kind of hijinks that comes about for wanting to care for a 4-year-old who lives on his own, but is at the same time extremely independent but naive. Provides a lot of fantastic, hilarious comedic moments while also serving you some of the most um, dire kind of like thematic explorations about what it is to be alone as a child.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it is fantastic. The animation style may not be for everyone, but just how bold it is, I think, to kind of want to marry these two things together in a way that feels very well put together and smooth, is it has been a joy to kind of watch this, and a very, very emotional journey as well.
Mm.
So that wraps up my 2 main recommendations here. I would like to give a shout out also to 2 notable mentions, one of
Okay.
which is for our listeners out there who like boys love stuff. And it
Mm.
is called Sasaki to Miyano, or Sasaki and Miyano. Think of this as the boys love version of Horimiya, which I gave an extremely glowing review to a couple of seasons ago. And essentially, it's about this high school boy, Miyano, who meets Sasaki, a much older upperclassman who's also a delinquent, and saves Miyano and his friend from a bunch of bullies. Now, Miyano harbors another embarrassing secret. As you can see, thematically, that's what we're going for this
Yep.
season. He is a fudanshi, which basically means he's a boy who likes boys love manga,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, through some slip of tongue, some students find out. Uh, and he eventually, due to Sasaki's kind of persistent presence in his life, despite his dislike of that, reveals the truth to Sasaki. Intrigued, Sasaki asks to borrow a book to read and kind of dives into the world of boys' love as well. Sasaki finds himself enjoying it, much to Miyano's surprise. But that starts a shift in the very already strange dynamic that they have. Sasaki and Miyano is an extremely cute, uh, very boys' love take on the romance genre of high school slice of life, and really does feel in a lot of ways like Horimiya, but with some very specifically different, gender specifically different things. For those of you who are into that, yeah, I would highly recommend it as well.
Nice.
It's cute. It's cute. There are a lot of like really kind of cute hair standing, sweet, heartfelt moments peppered throughout, and the voice acting
Okay.
as well as the very solid score is something to catch as well.
Nice. Okay. Okay.
Last but not least, and rounding up my recommendations is yet another slice of life slash sports anime, I guess, called Slow Loop, where
Mm-hmm.
we follow a young girl called Hiyori Yamakawa, um, whose eccentric father has always bonds with her in the single activity of fly fishing, right?
Okay.
Even after his death, Hiyori still spends time savoring the joy in this particular activity that goes on. 3 years later, when Hiyori's mother decides to remarry and arranges a dinner with her fiance and her fiance's family,
Mm.
Hiyori goes out, to find some quiet time for herself and goes to a nearby bridge where she always goes to do some fly fishing. Lo and behold, she meets another very outgoing, very extroverted girl at the bridge itself who takes an interest into fly fishing, what Hiyori is doing. But their meeting is more than a coincidence because it turns out that Koharu, this new girl that enters Hiyori's life, is actually Hiyori's future step sibling.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah,
Okay.
Slow Loop, on the surface, I think, especially in the first couple of episodes, comes across as a very interesting, kind of like informative, um, uh, little cute anime about cute girls doing cute things and centered around fly fishing. But in the
Mm.
later episodes, there are some very, very deep dives into each individual character's problems with their family. It is, after all, a family drama that is built around. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that it does do the thematic exploration of family drama and family trauma and of missing parents or dead parents. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of justice while still keeping it fairly like light-hearted. Um, I've been enjoying this just because like I think it's been a while since I've seen a cute girls doing cute things genre thing have a bit more meat on it than usual, and also like just
Ah.
learning a ton of stuff about fly fishing that I never knew before.
Okay.
As with anything that we would consider sports anime, I would say that the animation here is actually pretty solid, especially the fishing scenes. Like it
Mm-hmm.
feels eye-catching, and reminds me a lot of, oh man, what was that early 80s anime about fishing as well? uh
I've never seen anything like that.
yeah. I'll bring it up as and when I remember what it is. But like fairly solid all around, something that I've really kind of like kept up to date with and enjoyed throughout the season as well. And that wraps up this this episode of Anime Corner, I guess. Uh
Nice. Okay. Okay.
that being said, I think we
Um.
are looking forward to a lot of amazing stuff upcoming in spring.
Mm.
So we'll see how that goes. I believe that a ton of stuff is coming in, so pay attention for the next time that we do another roundup.
Yeah, probably mid-year lah. Then we can round out all the hopefully better spring season.
Yep.
With a lot of hype titles coming in
Oh
soon.
yeah.
Yeah, quick shout out. I recently also said this on the last episode of Behold, but if you didn't listen to that, I caught up on a show called Kids on the Slope recently.
Yeah.
I really, really liked it. It is a jazz anime, which is
I
I think rare even for music animes, but
yes.
yeah, I really thought it was fine.
Yes.
Yeah, it was fun and dope.
So
Yeah.
I've, because of your recommendation, The Last Behold, I have started watching that, and then I'm a couple of episodes in. I think 2 episodes in, but I'm really really enjoying it. Kids on the Slope was something that completely was not on my radar at the point in time when it came out. But damn, dude, what a
Mm.
discovery, man! It's very very solid stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. I was so surprised by Kids on the Slope. I discovered it when I was listening to jazz on YouTube, one of those autoplays
Yeah.
things, and then one of the songs of the Kids on the Slope OST came on,
Hmm.
and lo and behold, Kids on the Slope blew my mind. I started listening to it and I started watching it, and it became this really cool sort of slice of life coming of age story as told through the lens of jazz.
Yeah.
It is it is a, probably quite unique lah, but its slice of life elements is quite normal. Like
Yeah.
you've seen it, you've seen it done before. But it's the jazz element that made it special. It's like it follows this introverted high schooler, which is standard. Karu Nishimi, right?
Yeah.
He's this classically trained pianist, and one day he accidentally befriends his school's resident delinquent, Sentaro Kawabuchi, who happens to be a jazz drummer. And through this unexpected bond with Kentaro, like Karu begins to broaden his rigid worldview. He delves into like this messier, more chaotic, more improvisational world of jazz. And their jam sessions, as their instruments communicate and argue with each other, kind of like expressing what they can't articulate, provide some of the show's most transcendent moments. And like I said, the coming of age, like other coming of age stories, like Kids on the Slope also aims to explore the transition from teen to adulthood through ordinary struggles that seem insurmountable to the teen mind.
Yeah.
Kaoru needs to be being such a sad, needs to stop being such a sad sack. Sentaro needs to learn responsibility.
Yeah.
But all the conflict and struggle and conversation is represented through jazz, which is the perfect art form to embody the chaotic, interactive, multidimensional, syncopated messiness that is life.
Yeah.
And the two boys are also part of a trio of friends, which includes Ritsuko, which is Sentaro's childhood buddy and Karu's love interest. Unfortunately for Karu, Ritsuko has been in love with Sentaro since she was a child, which makes the friendship more complex. Many slice of life animes have intertwining crushes that lead to love triangles or love quadrangles or love hexagons, and this one does too. But few feel as realistic as Kids on the Slope. The romances and friendships and messy growing pains are less soap operatic than most teen dramas, and it feels very like well observed and realistic. And as a huge bonus, again, you get a great jazz soundtrack to accompany you with every lushly drawn moment of teen agony. So yeah, I highly recommend Kids on the Slope as well.
Excellent stuff.
Nice. I did not expect to put that in anime corner, but hey, here it is.
Hey, I mean, it's anime, so let's go with it. And I'm really enjoying it. Yeah.
It's a very old anime from 2012.
Yeah.
So you might have trouble finding it. It's not on Netflix or anything, but you know what to look like if you're an anime guy.
Yeah.
Finally, I'm going to delve into the pull list, which is where I recommend a book or a comic that my co-hosts haven't read and probably a little under the radar this month. It's a book called 13 Stories, which I super enjoyed. It was a gift from a friend in Christmas. Had not heard of this book at all. And let me tell you, buying a book for me is a massive risk because like don't try. But this friend gave me 4 books. Wanted to hedge her bets to see, hopefully at least one book I haven't read, and that one book was 13 Stories.
Okay.
I never heard of it, didn't know anything about it, and this was the best book that I've read in recent times. Perhaps not a great work of literature, but a great page-turning, fun kind of book,
Yeah.
like one of those that you read on a train journey or like in a plane or something like that. 13 Stories is the debut novel of Jonathan Sims, who was the head writer and voice actor for a horror podcast called The Magnus Archives. The Magnus Archives is very, very, very popular in the horror podcast world, and it's not much of a surprise that 13 Stories works in a similar vein of horror.
Yeah.
The Magnus Archives excelled at taking short story ideas, at least short horror story ideas, and linking them together into a coherent, overarching plot without giving up on making almost every episode standalone. So every episode can be listened to as a standalone story, but they all tie in at the end of each season. Think of it like What If. It's like that.
Okay.
And 13 Stories threads a similar needle. Each chapter is told from the point of view of one person who either lives or works in Banyan Court. Banyan Court is an apartment building owned by a billionaire called Tobias Fell. What is Banyan Court? Banyan Court is a 13-story high-rise apartment block and a residential development in London. Banyan Court is divided into 2 opposite sides. The front of their building features large, lavish, and luxury pristine modern apartments for the high class, privileged, and the wealthy, where their every whim is catered. They have concierge, stuff like that. Meanwhile, at the back of the building, it features basic and functional tenement-style apartments that are dilapidated and run down. They are for the deprived and the low income and the lower class. It is designed this way because legally in London, this is a real thing.
Yeah.
Every residential building in central London must apportion some space for affordable housing.
Oh.
So it's a weird building where like half of it is super rich and half of it is super poor. And as I mentioned, each of the first 12 stories focuses on an individual person and their supernatural experiences within Banyan Court, which is a super haunted building.
Mm-hmm.
In each story, um, each story kind of ends with a person receiving an invitation to a dinner party,
Yeah.
being hosted by Tobias Fell, the reclusive billionaire who designed Banyan Court and lives in a penthouse. So the 13th and final story brings all of the assembled players from the previous 12 stories as the invitees arrive for a fateful dinner party that sees Tobias Fell murdered in bloody fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why did I tell you that he was murdered? Isn't that a big spoiler? No, it's revealed in the very first page of the book, and then it works backwards. It's right there in the intro. The mystery is that none of these guests seem to remember what happened. So we're recounting the events leading up to the dinner party.
Yeah.
So we as the reader can find out what happened. So all of the individual chapters are each excellent ghost stories in their own right, featuring different types of hauntings and very different protagonists. Some of the haunted are rich people living in the front, such as a millionaire app developer whose technology turns on him.
Mm-hmm.
There's an avant-garde art dealer who becomes obsessed with a haunted new painting he acquires. Some stories are about the poor, struggling people living in the back, such as a night shift worker and a single mother barely able to make ends meet. Meanwhile, some stories also focus on the workers at Banyan Court, such as a plumber and a concierge. Each character has their own struggle, and I really appreciated how diverse these protagonists are in terms of race, class, gender, and sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
And through the stories, we learn the many, many, many reasons why Banyan Court is so haunted, because it all goes back to the crimes of Tobias Fell, and what his family has committed en route to attaining their wealth.
Oh.
They have oil companies poisoning rivers. They have agricultural companies sending mercenaries to displace indigenous people from their lands. They have pharmaceutical companies dealing in drugs that have killed people. His clothing companies exploit slave labor. His media companies espouse fake news and cover-ups.
Oh, man.
He has goons murdering whistleblowers. His real estate companies contributed to the housing crisis. He has mining and construction companies that cut costs on safety equipment, leading to many worker deaths, and so much more. So it's obvious that the spirits of his many victims are angry and are coalescing at this place. So the book tackles the theme of wealthy people exploiting the poor by bringing up issues that are timely and socially relevant. There's a sinister vibe throughout the story where Tobias Fell lingers in the background of each character without making an appearance. I was excited to see what will happen to lead to his death, especially when the characters start receiving the dinner invitations. But what I really loved about the book was that, even if you take out the sociological underpinnings or the political underpinnings, or whatever,
Uh-huh.
the book is just a genuinely creepy story. 13 Stories is saturated in this really eerie atmosphere with a creeping sense of unease and a sinister undertone. And each haunted house story or each ghost story is so different, like so very different, that it's always a breath of fresh air when you jump into a new story.
Yeah.
A lot of people like to think that ghost stories are a dime a dozen, one and the same. No, they're not. There are 12 very different ghost stories here. Some are insidious and offer a grounded and measured approach.
Mm-hmm.
Others are cerebral and use the adage of less is more, leaving your imagination to run wild. While others are far more visceral, with sections that include some full-blown grotesque and macabre vivid imagery.
Yeah.
With the differences in both the stories and the hauntings, 13 Stories offers a varied collection of immersive and unsettling tales that had me hooked. Give this one a shot if you're looking for a nice, quick, breezy, easy read with short chapters and a lot of paragraphs between between everything. It's a very easy read, so yeah, give this one a shot. 13 Stories as well.
Cool.
That wraps it up for this month's genre equality. I almost said hard hit skill. For this month's genre equality, we will be back next month to talk about the final season of Attack on Titan,
Oh, yeah.
Severance, Russian Doll, which returns after 3.5 years. Oh my god.
Mhm.
Morbius is finally coming to the cinemas. I'll believe it when I see it. Like this movie. Like when I sit down and when the trailers finish and when Morbius starts, that's when I believe that I'm watching Morbius, because
Yeah.
Morbius has been pushed back so many times that I don't believe. Like there's a question mark next to this on the rundown. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe.
We'll see.
Um,
We'll see.
yeah, are we talking about other films like Memoria, Fantastic Beasts 3, I think, Sonic the Hedgehog 2? I saw talk about Ultraman and the new anime about a Roman bathhouse designer
Yeah.
who gets transported to modern Japan. Plus, I'll be reviewing a very old book that won a Pulitzer Prize that I've shamefully never read until now. It's called Never Let Me Go. I've seen the movie,
Mhm.
which is why I didn't read the book because I thought, I had the experience. But well, I mean, as with most things, a Pulitzer Prize winning book is a lot better than a movie with 60% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Mhm.
there you go. Um, Again, no fault of Andrew Garfield. Okay?
Yeah.
He's been in several bad movies, but it's never his fault. The movie had Andrew Garfield and Carey Mulligan and Keira Knightley, so they're good actors. It just wasn't very well done. But yeah, that's upcoming for John Quality 53. What are you most excited to talk about?
Oh man, I haven't the Roman bath one. Oh
Yep.
yeah, that one I'm really keen on finishing. That I'm really curious as to how AOT is going to end overall. It's one of those giants of anime over the last decade or so that really has captured the imagination on a global scale, and I'm very curious how they're going to close it out. Because there's a lot of build up and a lot of goodwill that's been forged, especially since season 3. So I'm curious to see how they go. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yep, definitely. So yeah, we can't wait to talk about the rumbling. Yeah, till next time though. This has been
I'm
Hidzir.
Isa.
Goodbye,
Ciao.
guys.